Kim. Hi, Gina. I do it all the time, don't I?
Yes, you do.
I apologize. It's my fault. We're late. I wanted to go get a drink, and I went to get a drink, and there was a customer in the store who had to ask me a question, and I understand that, but it took me a couple of minutes to answer his question. He had twisted neck with his birds, and from what he tells me, it was paratyphoid. Is that a good excuse, Gina, or is there no excuse?
Good enough. It'll work.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Foys on Facebook. Today is our 20th show. As you all know, this is Jerry, the owner of Foys. My name is Gina, and Veronica is behind the scenes.
We get Veronica here sometime.
Yeah, we need to.
If
Veronica,
she's
Kim.
shaking her head, what we ought to do is just take the camera and chase her around the warehouse. But we do the show from our warehouse, and the garage door is open, so you'll hear different noises of trucks and cars going by. And anybody that watches the show regularly knows also that UPS will be here and they'll talk to us. FedEx will be here. Mm-hmm. The mailman's already left. But anyways, we do it here because of the light is good. And I interrupted you again, didn't I?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm used to it. Today's show will be mainly talking about the automatic drinkers. One of our customers requested that we explain how the automatic drinkers work, and we have several different ones. They pretty much all work the same way, but we'll show you the different ones that we do have. So, we will start with this one.
This shouldn't take more than 10 minutes, I would imagine, to talk about.
Yeah. So, there you go.
Okay, and this one is called?
The automatic drinker.
What an original name for an automatic drinker. And they're all on page 98 of our catalog. If you want to go on the website, you type in automatic drinker and they'll come up. So anyway, this one is a small one. Keep in mind that water is in front of the pigeons at all times. And as they drink from this drinker, the water will refill. So you don't have to put a large drinker down. For instance, I don't use automatic drinkers. Every one of my lofts get 1 gallon of water, just automatic. With this, I don't have to use a gallon. I just fill it up as the birds drink. The water level comes back up again. So it's pretty simple. They're all the same. You want to talk about that one?
No.
Okay.
This is what's inside in the hose.
This is what you get. This is a float valve. And I'll use this one. Pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
Where's that little black attachment, or did you have one?
Right here.
Okay. We'll start out with this. For an automatic drinker, you have to have a source for the water. So what this is made for is PVC piping. It can be real small PVC piping, whatever size, depending on how many birds you've got and how much water flow you want to come in. And the way it works basically is, as you can see, on the end of this is this unit here. It's how to attach to it's made to attach to the PVC pipe. So what you do is you unscrew it so it opens up like that. Okay, this goes up and down, and there's a little nipple right here. So you're going to drill a small hole in the bottom of the PVC pipe wherever you want it. This unit that moved comes off completely. You take it off, you slide this hole up underneath the pipe, and you slide this down to the hole. Actually goes this way, I'm sorry. This is the top.
I need to see.
You were going to tell me that, weren't you? Oh.
I was.
And then it slides up to where you drilled the hole. And then you tighten it right where you drilled your hole. So now it's connected. And then there's a nut here that screws on right there. So the water comes through the hole, down the hose, and I think this is a 10-foot hole. Does it tell you that, Gina? I forget.
Hose?
Yeah.
I think 6 foot.
It's a 6-foot hose attaches to that. And if you look inside, there's a valve. This is a water release valve. And what happens as the water level goes down, whether it's from evaporation or whether most likely from the birds drinking it. It starts out high. As the water level goes down, it drops down, and as it drops down, it opens up the flow of the water. The valve goes back up, stops the flow until more water is consumed. So they're all the same. We just have different sizes, styles. This is one where they have to stick the head in. So it's made more for pigeons. The next one is the red one. There you go. This is a much bigger one. It works for pigeons certainly, but it's a poultry unit because chickens will have to stick their heads in through here. Absolutely the same way. You're going to drill a hole, you're going to put it under there, the PVC pipe, water comes down. There's a valve in here. I wanted to show the same valve is in here also. I wanted to show you it has legs so that it can be put flat on the ground, or with the legs, if you have a bigger breed like a king or a Modena, that's a great height. Or for poultry, it's fine for just about any size chicken or turkey. You see the same setup. The valve goes up and down based on the water flow. And if you decide you want to put it on the ground without the legs, they fold back down. That's it. This is going to probably take 7 minutes.
Now all these are to be used on a low pressure water supply. All of the automatic drinkers.
And when we say water, the low pressure, basically what it means is usually gravity. In other words, you're going to have a container with water, maybe a 5-gallon bucket or something like that. And the gravity, when the valve asks for water, the water comes through your 5-gallon bucket or whatever it is up higher. So it has to be low pressure. If you have a very high pressure system in your house, it's not going to work. It's going to blow the valve out. This is a drinker only.
Drinking trough.
Pardon?
Drinking trough.
Drinking trough. I'm sorry. It looks like a drinker only to me, but
it is.
Okay. So this is for more birds. Access all at the same time. Here's your valve. You notice this is now a round valve. The other one was a flat valve. Different uses. Also, if you want to make your own, you can see how easy it is. Go to the hardware store and buy your own equipment, but you'll need a valve. Awful hard to find. We buy these from overseas, so you could buy these separately if you want, the round one or the flat one. Here again, the water comes in. As the water level goes up, it picks the valve up and shuts it off. As the water level goes down, it turns the water back on. Convenient, easy to use, and of course plastic will last forever.
Hand me the hose, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
We get questions certainly. These are not going to work when you get below freezing, because the water is going to freeze. There's no movement of the water other than as it fills and then it shuts off. So keep that in mind. You're either going to have to use it in warm areas where there's no freezing, or maybe all summer into fall, and when it starts to get cold, you're going to have to go back to feeding them with drinkers, standard drinkers that you're using now.
This is the Crown automatic drinker feeder.
Crown automatic drinker, once again in our catalog, a little different. This is a combination feeder drinker. Feed goes here. The water goes in here. The water area doesn't have to be big because it keeps refilling itself. So you've got a combination. Same valve. This one happens to be a flat valve. Goes up, goes down, the same piping. So really, I like this idea because you've got feed and drinker, takes up less space in your loft.
And these do come in two different sizes. This is the large one.
Okay, there's the one that's smaller.
Yes. These also.
That was a stupid question, Gina. You should have said duh. If that's the large one, you have to assume the other one is the small one.
I didn't want to say
or else it would be a larger one.
These also come with legs. You can put the legs on or use it without the legs. And then, as Jerry said, we do sell the pieces separately. Where'd my little thing go? Oh. They're all in the catalog and online. You can buy these separately if you need them or if you need replacement pieces.
That's it.
That's it.
Fort Pitt, as they say in this area.
And you wanted to talk about
You're a Penn
molting.
State fan. Going to get your butts whipped tomorrow. Pitt's planning. Okay. Do we have questions or anything we want to start with? Why don't you tell them the whole
yeah.
process and do whatever you've got to do?
Of?
The process of sending in questions?
If you have any questions, whether it's on what we're talking about or anything to do with pigeons, health, housing, anything, all you have to do is type it right there on the Facebook post, and then we'll answer it live. And that's it.
Sounds easy
Or
to
you
use.
could always send questions in before the show also, which I have one right now. We have a gentleman that has, he's asking why his babies don't hatch. There's a fully developed baby in the shell, but it never comes out or even tries to come out.
And what would you suggest, Gina?
Why are you going to put me on the spot?
What do you think it might be?
Calcium?
Nope.
No.
It's probably one of two things. It in the shell is what they call a black shell. It's not black. It's just a darker shade than the normal pink shell, and it's either paratyphoid, which is probably what it is, or it could be E. coli. That would do it also. Does it say it's more than one pair, or doesn't say specifically?
He doesn't say.
Okay. Generally, if it happens, it's not going to be one pair. It's going to be over time multiple pairs. If it's E. coli or paratyphoid, in both cases, it's the same drug. There are drugs that are made specifically for that. Too many people make the assumption that because the product says paratyphoid, it's a good treatment. For example, 4-in-1 tells you it's for canker, coccidiosis, paratyphoid, canker, coccidiosis, and it also 4-in-1 has a probiotic. I'm going by memory. Canker, go ahead, Gina.
Canker, paratyphoid, E. coli, coccidiosis.
Okay. If you have an issue like this gentleman does, what's his name? Did he mention it?
Vahid.
Vahid. If you want to treat paratyphoid, use a drug that's made specifically for paratyphoid or E. coli. It's the same drug. Too many people use the other one, the multi-purpose drugs that treat a lot of things. But if with the symptoms you've got, and I would guess that you don't vaccinate, and if you don't vaccinate, once you do solve the problem and cure it and it goes away, it's going to come back again either this year or most likely when you start breeding again next year. It stresses the bird, paratyphoid comes back. So first of all, you've got to treat. My suggestion, do you have the item numbers, the furaltidone? Do you know the numbers? I know one is number 12.
12 is furazolidone. Number 2529 is typhoid cure.
I'm impressed.
And
you're going to have to also, after you treat, you're going to treat with a good quality probiotic. The directions are on the bottom, on both of the containers. If you have a lot of birds, when I'm saying a lot of birds, let's say you have 100 or more, 75 or more, you're probably going to need more than one container. But if you have a small number of birds, then and they're drinking about a gallon or less a day, then you'll only need one container of the number 12. Okay. But I wanted to mention also that after you do that, you've got to vaccinate. Too many people are afraid to vaccinate, and I understand that, but once you've done it a couple of times, it's just so simple. In fact, I vaccinated some birds this morning myself, and I do it myself. The key, though, you have to remember this. Remember at the beginning of the show, I told you there was a gentleman in the store asking me about his sickness with the twisted neck, green droppings, and I told him it was paratyphoid. He said, but I vaccinated. I said to him, was it the first time? Yeah. I said, how many times did you vaccinate? He says, once. Well, it doesn't work that way, so he wasted his time in vaccinating. And a lot of people say they vaccinate and have an issue. If it's the very first time you vaccinated these birds, you've heard me mention this before, if it's the very first time or you don't know, why take the chance? You have to vaccinate twice. Once, then 14 days later, again. That's both for paratyphoid or PMV, which is a virus. And then what's the time frame after you vaccinate?
PMV is annually and paratyphoid is semi-annually.
For those of you who are challenged in the English language like me, annually means once a year. Semi-annually means twice a year. I was at an attorney's yesterday talking about some situations, and we were sitting there, and he starts spouting off all these big words. I says, whoa, Alan, whoa, whoa. I said, talk English, because he was using all this legalese stuff. So a lot of times I know I have a habit of using words that other people haven't heard before. So the important thing, very, very important, if they've never been vaccinated before, you've got to vaccinate them twice. Depending on the drug, you also have to use a good quality probiotic. Hope I've answered your question. I'm going back to it. I'm pretty sure that's the problem you have. It's awful late in the season to be breeding too, so you may want to wait and vaccinate them now after you're done breeding. Which,
okay,
go ahead.
He did respond. He said it just happens to 1 or 2 eggs when he breeds, and he does not vaccinate.
Okay. Well, you've got to vaccinate. There's no way to know absolutely for sure if it's paratyphoid, but it's that disease is a bacterial infection. It's almost a what's the word? Epidemic. That's the word I was looking for. All over the country, I get more questions on that particular symptom than any other one problem. So if you don't vaccinate, what I would suggest you do is at this point stop breeding, and then after you're done breeding, then you've got to vaccinate. Maybe let the birds rest maybe a week or 2 before you vaccinate, and then as directed. And I want to tell you, you can call us anytime. If you have a question, by golly, the girls can answer it. Most of them, if they can't answer it, then they'll give you my home phone number, and I'll answer it for you. Now, I was going to go off on a tangent, and I forget what it was all about. It'll come back to me.
Imagine that.
Do we have another question?
We do.
Okay.
Nick from New Hampshire. I've hatched about 10 to 12 babies in the last month. They have all died within a day to a week. What's the most likely cause?
Well, that's a tough one, because when you ask that particular question, it could be one of so many things. That's a tough one. The directions are so general, but 10 to 12 babies in the last month, they've all died within a day to a week. What I would suggest you do is go to a broad spectrum antibiotic. I venture to say you probably haven't vaccinated, but I don't know, because that could also be paratyphoid, which we just spoke about, in E. coli. But I talked to a gentleman yesterday from Canada who had similar symptoms, and I told him use amoxicillin. The benefit of amoxicillin over other drugs, amoxicillin is broad spectrum, treats a lot of different things, including bacterial infections, something like paratyphoid or other bacterial infections. And it's not a wormer, it's not for coccidiosis, it's not for canker, it's for bacterial infections. So my suggestion certainly is to you, put them on amoxicillin. But when I told the gentleman from Canada, he had some doubts when I told him this. I said, put him on it for 21 straight days. Now that sounds like an awful long time, but I told him, if you don't do it, you're wasting your money, so don't do it at all, because amoxicillin is a time-sensitive product. You can't use it for 3 or 4 or 5 days and expect results. It takes a good while for it to get into the system, so amoxicillin is fairly inexpensive. You can use it when you're breeding, and that's what I would try. Follow it with a good probiotic. I remembered the tangent I was going to go on, and I looked at Gina, and she's so gorgeous. When I looked in her eyes, I forgot what I was going to say. It'll come back to me. Okay.
Ay, ay, ay. We have another question.
Oh, okay.
You ready for that?
Yep.
Tony from Staten Island, New York. I am treating with 3-in-1 for preventive maintenance. How long do I have to wait to use a wormer? These are young birds.
Okay. Interesting question. My question, I suppose, back to you, but it doesn't require an answer unless you want to. 3-in-1 contains a wormer. So why would you want to worm them after you've used 3-in-1? So my answer is don't worry about it unless you have a long history of problems with worms that you're sure of. But if that is the case, don't use 3-in-1 in the future. If you have a history of worm issues, use a good quality wormer. One of the best is the worm out gel, but there are others. We have it in powdered form, and we have it in tablet form. Anyways, and if you can put it in the water, you can put it on the feed, if I'm not mistaken, one of them. So you're better off to buy a good all-purpose wormer. I like the worm out gel, and worm your pigeons, because when you're using 3-in-1, that is more of a maintenance type problem, where you maintenance type product where you don't think you have any problems at all, but you said, what the heck, I'm going to be breeding shortly, so maybe I'll just take the 3-in-1 just to make sure there are no canker, coccidiosis, or worms problem. Going back to the beginning, use a worm product, not a 3-in-1 or a 4-in-1 or a 5-in-1. You might want to mention the auction after the show.
What time? No, but when we started, 4:10. Immediately following this show at 4 o'clock, I almost said 1600. At 4 o'clock, we will have the auction for the books that is online. So if you would like to bid on those, you can do so now, and it will end at 4:30 for both different books.
Okay, can they see these books, Veronica? Okay. The books that are in front of me go from what years? Did you write it down? What year they go?
You wrote it down.
I wrote it down, but there it
on
is.
a yellow pad.
Yeah.
October 96.
Yeah. To 2000. They're not every issue, to my knowledge. We're talking about these books here. They go as a set in the auction. We'll talk more about the auction, but they're the Racing Pigeon Digest from 1996 to 2000. They're really in good shape. When you buy them, you have to pay the shipping, and we'll talk more about it during the auction.
Yeah, there's 8 of the Racing Pigeon Digest books, and then
This is something really unique. It's not. It's of interest to many people, not just pigeon people, because this is from 1944, during World War II. It was created and printed by the 828th Signal Pigeon Replacement Company, and it's dated 1944. And what I also find interesting is that it's restricted. In other words, at this time, I don't want to use the word secret, but information in this book was restricted. And we'll talk more about it, but 1944, that makes it really an interesting book. Anybody that's interested in pigeons or in military paraphernalia, how'd you like that word, huh?
Nice.
I'd pull that one right out of... Anyways,
Right
we'll
out
have
the
an
sky.
auction right after this.
So this will start immediately after this show, which ends at 4 o'clock, and then the auction ends at 4:30.
And I just want to let you know, the bidding, there's no minimum bid. We've already got a bid for $25 for the whole series, and we've got a bid for $25 for this particular book. So
Yeah.
if you bid 25 or if you bid 30, it might be your books.
And if you have any questions, just ask on the live show right now, and then we'll answer your questions.
Okay.
You wanted to talk about
Yep.
molting?
Gina said, well, we've already talked about molt, but molt is on my mind because I'm getting a lot of questions about that. And when I walk into my loft, I shake my head. I can sweep up the feathers every day, and there's just as many. It's almost like snow. When I walk into the house, I have to brush my shoes, but inevitably, there's feathers everywhere in the house too, because your pigeons are molting. And I had a gentleman call me and wanted as much information as I could give him on the molting. So I said, call me back. I want to do a little bit of research for you so that I can give you the correct information. And I just remembered what I was going to go off on a tangent. Can I interrupt myself?
You can. Next time, just say it. Don't tell us.
Okay. Oh, geez. Well, when you get to be close to 80, I guess you're allowed to do that. Getting back to the molt, one of the most important things is feed. When pigeons are molt, of course, is once a year when the pigeons grow almost all new feathers. The only feathers that aren't replaced when a bird is in a molt, a pigeon, if you spread out the wings, you have flight feathers, the long one and a kind of stiff. Inside, close to the body, are down feathers, really, really soft. They don't molt those, but they molt everything else. So when they're molting, they're growing in new feathers. You want to do everything you can during the molt to keep the birds as calm as possible, even a little bit darker than normal, and keep them quiet so that they're not stressed. All of these are little things that you can do to promote a better molt, and we've talked about it before. But in talking about the feed, one thing you've got to do is include the oil seeds. Try to stay with small grains. Some companies like Moyer and Des Moines Feed and other companies make a feed specifically for the molting season. They're all small seeds, easy to digest, but the important thing is they have oil seed in them. And oil seeds help to produce a nice smooth feather. So you might want to switch to a seed or a grain that contains oil seeds, or you can add them to the feed yourself. One oil seed is flax. It's probably the best seed that you can use when it comes to adding oil to the feed itself. And they're not oily, but it's an oil seed. Another one is safflower. And also, a lot of people will add a little bit of oil to the feed, and that oil is to promote the same thing. And there are oils sold by us and other companies here at Foy's. So keep that in mind. Feed is just so very, very important. In researching the molt, I came across a comment by Wendell Levi. If you are a pigeon enthusiast, Mr. Levi was probably the best known expert in pigeons we've ever had. Wrote many, many books, owned Palmetto Pigeon Plant, which was raising squabs at one time. I think he had 50,000 pair. But Mr. Levi said something that is controversial because I brought it up on one of the past shows, and I got a couple of comments. They didn't agree with me. One of my best friends said he didn't agree with me either. What Mr. Levi said and what Mr. Roberts said, John Roberts is the one that had Racing Pigeon Bulletin many, many years ago. It's a fallacy. Both of them said basically they said it the same way. It's misinformation if you think you have to separate your birds after breeding season. When I say separate, put the hens on one side, the cocks on the other. Both Mr. Levi and Mr. Roberts say you do not have to do it. Research has proved time and time again that the results after the molt and after breeding season are absolutely no difference at all, whether you separate them or whether you don't separate them. So I like that idea because as many pigeons as I have, trying to separate them all the time was a chore. So I'm not going to do it anymore because the experts who certainly know a lot more than I do tell you not to do it. They don't say not to. They say there's no appreciable difference between birds that have been divided and birds that have not been divided. When I talked about the feed, we talked about the oil in the feed and the seeds themselves. Another thing that's important is you can supplement. And the reason I wanted to mention that, I want to come back to protein, okay?
Okay.
This is a product called Avial Molt. And when I was reading the directions before I brought this out to talk about, the first ingredient, and there's a number of ingredients in this particular product, and it goes on the feed. But as you know, in any can or any bottle you pick up, the very first ingredient is probably there's more of that particular ingredient than anything else. Mm-hmm. Well, the first ingredient in molt is krill powder. Do you know what krill is? Mm-hmm. Okay, what's krill?
Krill, fish, like, yeah.
It's funny, the biggest, the biggest animal in the world is a whale. A krill is probably one of the smallest things in the world, and that whale eats krill. They have teeth. I don't want to go off on that, do I? No, anyway, but it has krill oil, and you sprinkle it on your feed. So if you want to add oil, this is a good one to try too. And I wanted to talk about protein. This is a time of the year when you want to increase the protein level. Generally, feeds are 13 or 14, sometimes 15% protein. There are products, we sell them. You can also get a high protein seed, but this is the time of the year during the molt you want to increase the protein level a little bit, not 20%, but if you want to go up to about 18% during the molt, that would be a good idea. My nose is so itchy, I can't stop it.
Probably from the pigeons.
No, I'm not allergic to pigeons.
How do they increase the protein with what?
Feed. There are high protein seeds. That's why when you buy pigeon feed, you might get least expensive one to be around 11 or 12%. But as the price of the feed goes up in almost all cases, you're going to see the protein level has gone up too. Now, we do have a couple of products that increase protein. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Can you?
For the feed?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the Black Label?
Yeah, on that top of the brand.
The Black Label.
But there are other feeds too. But if you really want to know for sure, you call and I'll do a bit of research. Ask for Gina, and if Gina hasn't researched by then, I'll research it and we'll have an answer for you. Okay, that's a little bit about the molt itself.
Hold on. Say they have a particular brand of feed that they like. Is there something they can add to it for protein?
There's a book called, written by 2 veterinarians. If I had the time, I'd go get it. But if we'll write it down.
Peanuts?
Peanuts? No, peanuts were fat. Oh. But they're high protein. But yeah, you're right. I'd have to go look and get that book.
Okay.
And if you have a question, call us. But just remind me, we'll talk about it at the next show, how to increase protein. But if you need an immediate answer, call. I'll have the answer after the show. Any more questions? Oh.
I have a pigeon not eating food.
What is he eating? I guess I think what he's asking is he has a pigeon that doesn't seem to be eating, and if it's not eating, it's going to end up being fluffed up in most cases. So if he's not eating food, I'm guessing if you want to send another question or an answer back for us, give me more information, because if it's not eating, it's going to die, of course. But just tell me what the bird looks like. Is it sick? Is it the only one doing it? Or have you changed your feed or anything like that? So send in another question if you would. Give me more information. Which reminds me, when people call me and they have health questions, I always end up asking them the same questions. So I'm going to ask that gentleman. Was his name Si? S-I?
I think so, yeah.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, young or old birds? Second of all, describe what you're seeing. Fluffed up, twisted neck, got a limp, breathing heavy, things like that. Then I'm going to ask you a very important question, and it's amazing how many people can't answer it. And I tell them, well, why don't you do this? Go out and look, or call me tomorrow. What color are the droppings? That's so important because you have a range of colors in pigeon droppings. If it's very, very light, almost like a lime color, the problem is most likely
Coccidiosis?
Coccidiosis, yes. And coccidiosis is is a parasite that lives in the intestines, but if the droppings are light green, almost always coccidiosis. Then you get into shades of green. If it's dark green and watery, bacterial infection. Which one? I don't know for sure. I probably would ask you some more questions. The droppings always have a white color in them. White color is urine. That's what you're seeing. And there have been cases where people have called us and said the droppings are all white. And I'm not going off on a tangent.
No, you're
okay.
good. Go ahead.
All white means that the kidney is failing, and with a failed kidney, all you're going to get is urine. So that's another symptom that tells me something. Or if the droppings are in a ball in brown with white in them, perfect. That's what you want. If they're loose, not necessarily a problem. People sometimes panic when they say the birds have got all loose droppings. Well, loose and green. Stress will do that. If, like, I brought some birds down here today to the building, and when I put them into a cage, I know I'm going to see green droppings. Well, that'll go away in a matter of time because the birds are stressed. Or if they come back from a flight, a race or a flight of some sort, sometimes a hawk or something scared them, dropping is going to be green. Just give it a little bit of time.
So what he's saying is there's all different colors and they mean different things. So
Why did I spend all that time saying what I said when you could have said it in 30 seconds or less?
So pay attention to the droppings. It's very important. Very important.
Okay.
We have a question. Dave wants to know, what is the most expensive price you won in your racing life?
Personally, it would be less than $1,000. I belong to a very small club, and we pooled our money, but a big prize on a normal race would have been 100. But in the futurity races or special races, I did win, I think, second prize, and after I pooled, it was close to 1,000. But I've never been a big money winner or a big bettor. But prizes are not unusual in the bigger races, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. There's a race that pays $1 million. So it varies, but in answer to your question specifically, less than 1,000. If you think you're going to make money in pigeons, 99 out of 100. It's like going to the casino hoping you'll win. 99 out of 100 walk out a loser. Same thing with pigeon racing. Okay.
Right. Okay, what else?
Don't you have another topic? Do we have any other questions?
Send your questions in. Don't be afraid to ask any questions.
What about these questions?
Yeah.
Could we use those?
Yeah, can we talk to our customers?
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Bull. These are, you ask me those questions, I'll take that next. But these are some good questions.
Okay,
I think that need to be answered. Go
Let me
ahead.
say something else first.
What if I say no?
I'll say it anyways. The Fremont, Ohio show is next weekend. We will be attending. So if you would like to place an order, we will bring your order there so you don't have to pay for shipping. You can come to our booth and pick it up. We do that to all the shows that we attend. And if you want to know what shows we're going to, you can call us and ask us. We don't have the list on our site yet, but we will be getting that momentarily. So next weekend is Fremont, Ohio. The weekend of the 25th of October is Louisville, Kentucky. So once again, if you want to order something big, something heavy, you don't want to pay for shipping to your house, we'll bring it for you, and you can just pick it up there, no shipping.
At the Fremont show, Fremont is almost to the Indiana line. If you cross from Indiana or Michigan, a lot of people come from Michigan to the Fremont show. But I also would mention that, as I've mentioned before, I'm chairman of a group called the NPA, National Pigeon Association Legacy Fund Trust. And we have had auctions on Facebook over the last 20 shows. We're not going to auction birds today, but we will next week, along with something else, I'm sure. But I'm looking for contributions. If you're going to be in Fremont and you would consider contributing some good quality pigeons, not
Banded.
something you want to get rid of.
Banded.
Pardon?
Banded.
Yeah, they have to be banded, but some of your better pigeons, and you can donate them. What the trust does is invest all of the money that we raise, and from those investments, the earned income is used to support the pigeon hobby. So if you want to bring some birds, I'll be in Fremont along with Gina and Kim, and it would be great if you brought a pair of pigeons for us to auction. If the birds sell for $100 or more, your name will be listed in the National Pigeon Association quarterly magazine twice a year forever. So you'll never ever be forgotten. You'll be always recognized as a contributor to the future of the pigeon hobby. So if you're thinking of going to Fremont, maybe bring a pair for me. I'd appreciate it.
Okay. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, our last show had over 43,000 views.
Just amazing. We haven't been below 40,000 people the last 3 shows, to the best of my knowledge.
Yep.
A lot of people.
It's awesome.
I think we have. You want to get that?
Yeah, we have a couple questions. David Blondo, I seen vaccines for adeno. Are they real?
To my knowledge,
No.
yes.
Yes.
Okay. But let me qualify it. The question is, are they real? If a product is a vaccine and it says it's for adeno, it's real, because nobody's going to go through all the trouble of making a vaccine that says adeno unless it is for adeno. But the qualification is this. In the United States, there's only 2 vaccines made specifically for pigeons. Just 2. PMV and paratyphoid. Both made by the same company and formulated and produced by 2 veterinarians, Dr. K and Dr. Miller. Both pigeon enthusiasts, both veterinarians. They went through the whole process, which took a number of years to produce the vaccines. There is no adeno vaccine in the United States that was brought in legally. And if you know anything about vaccines, and I'm not trying to disparage whoever's selling them, but common sense tells me when we ship vaccines, we have to ship them in ice packs. And when the weather is warm, like in the summertime and like we've had, we won't even ship them. But we put in 3 or 4 ice packs on a normal shipment, and we ship them overnight. Is that correct at this point? So they're next night. You tell me how you're going to get an adeno vaccine, which has to come from Europe, because they do have them over there. How are they going to get it overnight from Europe to the United States? It would be so costly because you'd have to airmail every one of them the next day. So you're talking probably shipping just to bring in some $100. So in answer to your question, yes, it's probably real. Would I buy it? Absolutely not.
And you don't know that it works because we don't know where
Right,
it's
we
from.
can't, but we can't
Yeah.
say yes or no.
Or
It's
no.
a good product.
Right.
We don't know.
Right. Just a comment. Mark Sargent, he's watching from Ireland.
Ireland. Good.
Ireland. Awesome. Dave Putnam, are you racing in any One Loft races?
Yes, but just one. It's one we sponsored. But let me make this clear. I don't race anymore. And the last time I raced was probably 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't want to race because of the time that you must contribute to that hobby. It's not easy to race pigeons, and it's very expensive and very time consuming. I had to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning just about every day. We trained very, very heavy. I was never a great flyer, never an excellent flyer. I was partners with a man who was good and very good friends who people from fanciers who helped me. But I can't tell you I was an excellent pigeon flyer. I did beat the combine, which if you race, you know that. But it was a one-off kind of a thing. So if you're asking me about my racing background, it's limited. We have a question up there. It was something about a loft, or did I miss it? I thought there was a
The
question
one I
up there.
just asked you about, are you racing in a loft race or something?
Okay, so in one loft races, if you don't know what they are, they're becoming very, very popular because of the reasons I just gave you. Racing in your own club is very, very time consuming. One loft race means you raise your birds, you ship them to the one loft race. It's always usually a one person or sometimes a group of people who are racing. They get pigeons in from all over the United States.
He asked if you was racing.
Okay. And the way to one loft race, they come in from all over the United States. You bet on them, and you don't get your birds back in most cases, but that's a one loft race. And the question was, do I race?
That was his original question.
Okay. No.
Okay. And he said, you look very good for your age.
I can't disagree.
Greg asked, what do you recommend as feed before a race?
Light. It isn't what you feed before a race. When I said light, not a real heavy feed with a lot of corn in it. But it's not a one-time deal. Racing is a year-round proposition. And if you're going to be racing, it depends on whether they're old birds or young birds. It depends on whether it's a short, middle, or long race, and you lead up to it. It isn't what you do the day before, because that's not going to have much bearing on anything. It's what you do to lead up to it.
Okay. I can't see Veronica. Do you do shows in California?
I have gone to California, I've gone to Washington State, I've gone to Texas, but the only reasons I normally go to those places is that that's where the Grand National for the National Pigeon Association is. We lose money every time we go to those locations because in order for us to go to California, or for instance, we have to pay maybe $1,000 in shipping to ship any amount out there. We can't go, so we ship it by truck. Then we have to fly, and it's usually 2 or 3 people. Then we have to pay for hotel rooms. We have to pay for food. The National Pigeon Association charges vendors like myself a fee. So we have gone to those shows to attend the Grand National just to make an appearance, but we haven't over the last few years. It's just a losing proposition. I go personally, but the company doesn't go. But we do go to a lot of shows.
Right.
Would you mention the auction just so they know where we stand?
Yes. The World War II book is now still at $25.
It's a steal. If I put this on, what do they call it, Google or Craigslist?
Yeah.
This would sell for hundreds
eBay.
of dollars from military collectors. So if you get $25, put it on.
Don't tell them that. They're going to turn around and resell it.
Put it on Facebook or somewhere, and you'll make a lot of money. Maybe. No, but that's the truth. 1944 from the Army.
We'll have time to talk about
it.
it. Okay, and the Racing Pigeon Digest collection is at $50.
So if you're at 50, you better, if you want it, you better call in. Or, shut up, Jerry. Call Facebook in or whatever you do. See, I might look good for my age, but I'm getting old.
Back. I didn't. David, if you suspect adeno, what would you do? Adenovirus.
By the way, there's no clock up there, Veronica. What happened to my clock? Oh, there it is. Adenovirus is a terrible killer. I had a friend, Mike Owens, who owns birds, boxes for birds, lost over 1,000 birds. When it hit the United States, literally hundreds of thousands of pigeons were killed. But it went away. It's a virus. There is no treatment, but it's come back. I don't think it's come back in the way it did the first time, but it has come back. Being a virus, there's absolutely no treatment. Even if you vaccinated, that's not a treatment, that's a preventative. And how can you prevent what you've already got? But I will say this, and I've said it in previous shows. Mike Owens lost 1,000 birds or more. And I'm not sure how he made the contact, but he tried a product called Drops. And when he used it during the course of this adenovirus outbreak, he said it stopped it dead in its tracks. How it happened, I do not know, but Mike ended up buying the products by the case to treat all of his birds. So you may want to try the Drops. We also have a product called Dino Zap, and that's made specifically for it. But the Dino Zap, once again, not a treatment, but it's to help treat the symptoms and help them through it.
And Adeno S from Europe.
Okay, Versalaga?
No.
No, Adeno S is
Pigeon Vitality.
Pigeon Vitality, a company I'm pretty sure is out of Holland?
Yeah.
Overseas.
Yeah.
Has a product called Adeno S. All of those products do not treat, they help them through it. Much like if you get a cold, that's a virus, and you treat the headache or you treat the fever that you have, but you can't get rid of the cold. It'll go by itself.
Don't read it out loud.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Hold on.
Yeah,
After
go
the
ahead.
question. Another question. What's your favorite thing about racing pigeon sport?
Watching them come home, winning, of course, or doing well, but most of the fun for me was get a lawn chair, sit on the lawn, or sit on my back porch, have a cool drink, and wait for the birds to come home. And the exciting part, seeing the first one or first two or three circling or boom coming in. That to me was the most fun. Everything else was work.
Gary asked, is oil sunflower good for mowing?
He means molting, I'm sure. And yes, it is. It's an oil seed, but you don't want the big gray and white ones. You want the small black oil sunflower.
Black oil.
Okay. I wanted to mention, the show's almost over. Death is part of all of us and part of life, but we lost what I considered a pigeon great in the last week. He wasn't well known, except for those who were friends with him, but he was known at one time because he was the secretary treasurer of the NPA. His name's Lenny Mefford, and Lenny gave and gave and gave back to the hobby. When something was needed, nothing was said, but all of a sudden the NPA had the money needed to support the project. He donated a lot of money for the NPA to buy cages. He donated to the National Pigeon Association Legacy Fund Trust. And he and I had a battle going. Who would reach what's called the platinum level, the level above that. It was $10,000 in a lifetime to give to the Legacy Fund Trust. And Lenny, every time I would tell Lenny, I just went ahead of you, Lenny, because I'm the chairman and I knew who gave what. Boom, here would come a donation, so he would go above me. So Lenny died. We'll all miss him. He was a great, great person for the hobby itself, and he ended up beating me because he sent in a donation, and of his death, he was the biggest single contributor to the Legacy Fund Trust. We'll miss Lenny, thank him for all that he did for us. Okay, are we pretty much, 3:50. Oh, there's another gentleman that passed away,
yeah.
real quick. James Fathbrockner, who was the heart and soul of the Rare Breeds Club. He's gone. The club is going to miss him greatly. Great man for our hobby.
William Fitzgerald said, is flaxseed is the best for molting? That's a question.
Yes, yeah. Best, it's an oil seed, but known for a molting seed, and any molting feed is going to have flax in it because it is an oil seed and it's a good one. Okay.
Another question.
Yeah.
Dave Putnam, what races did you like the most? Sprint, middle, or long distance?
Middle. Sprint, your bird doesn't have to be the best bird, just the bird has to be out in front. Maybe luckily, of course, if you race, you know its location of your loft. So you can have a bird win a the short race, 100-mile race, once and never win anything again in his lifetime. It's just a crapshoot.
No.
Middle distance it was my favorite because the long distance, you get up to 400 and 500 miles.
Can you make them
A lot
a
of sitting
little
around
bigger?
waiting.
I'm having a hard time seeing.
I answered the question.
You
You're not
did.
supposed to be talking to somebody else.
Sorry.
Okay.
Do you sell any Belgica de Word product? No, we do
No,
not.
I know the word is from Belgium. I know who he is, but we do not sell his product. I'm sure his products are good, but there are so many manufacturers coming out of Europe. You just can't sell everything.
Yeah.
But I think Siegel's does. I'm pretty sure if you check, Siegel's or Jed's probably do. We do not. Not meaning it's a bad product.
So,
We've got
Go
2
ahead.
more minutes and we'll do the auction. Once again, we thank you so much for being part of the 40,000 plus people who watch this show on a regular basis. I would think it was a fluke when the first time it was hit 47,000, but then it hit 40,000 again, and then it hit 40,000 again. For the last 3 shows, we haven't been under 40,000. So, not patting ourselves on the back, but we must be doing something right. I know all of you enjoy the show and enjoy the banter between Gina and I, and if you were watched the first couple of shows, Gina was like a deer's eye looking in the headlights of a car coming and not knowing what to do, so to speak. But she's relaxed now. She's doing a good job, and we're pretty much over. So if you want to watch the auction, if you don't want to buy, you just want to watch the auction, you're more than welcome. We're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break, and then we'll start the auction.
we do have one last
question? Okay.
from Vahid again. Is there anything I can do to keep Cooper Hawks away from my loft?
No.
No.
I mean, I can tell you to shoot them, but if you get caught, you have a $50,000 fine. The only thing I told a person this morning who called me about that is vary the time you release them. Don't release them the same time. The hawks know. They'll learn. If you release them at 9 o'clock every morning, at 8:55, that Cooper hawk's in a tree or on a pole waiting for you to release them. So try to vary the times. Other than that, you could make traps, but if you get caught, you're in trouble. Do what I did. I talked to my game conservation officer. I told him the pigeons were my hobby. They were very valuable. And you may not get this, but he said to me, Jerry, what I don't know won't hurt me. He said, I understand your love and the cost of the birds. He says, and I won't bother you unless one of your neighbors call or somebody reports you. I'll have to come, but you can be sure I'll do everything I can not to fine you, to warn you. So your conservation officer may not be that plain, but I was lucky enough to have one, and I've never had a problem. See ya.
Next show is September 21st. Don't forget, if you want to pre-order for any of the shows, call ahead of time. Get your order in. You won't pay for shipping. We'll bring it there for you. You can pick it up at the show.
Excuse me, you have also mention again,
Go ahead.
we'll be in Fremont.
I just said that.
Yeah, but I was going to say, Gina will be there, I'll be there, Kim will be there. If you want to meet us or if you want to ask questions and more in depth, we'll give you all the time you want. We'll be bringing products here.
Right. So September 21st, next show. We're going to tune off for a minute, give us about 5 minutes, and we'll be back for the auction.
Turn the camera off.
Have a great weekend.